Hi there, this is Ajit Navlaka for Entrepreneur Podcast, and today I have a fantastic man with me. His name is Neil Patel. Neil is, I met Neil maybe a year and a half ago when I was at a mastermind that he hosts called Entrepreneur, and fantastic talk. I mean, the guy just blew everybody's mind, and these were like not startup entrepreneurs, these were entrepreneurs with over $1 million businesses, and he shared some really epic content strategies and SEO strategies at that event and absolutely blew everybody's mind. Let me give you a brief introduction on what Neil is. Neil is the co-founder of Crazy Egg, Hello Bar, and Kiss Matrix. He helps companies like Amazon, NBC, GM, HP, and Viacom grow their revenue. The Wall Street Journal calls him a top influencer on the web. Forbes says he's one of the top 10 online marketers, and I confirm that. And Entrepreneur Magazine says he created one of the 100 most brilliant companies in the world. He was recognized as top 100 entrepreneurs under the age of 30, which he's still under the age of 30, by the President Obama, and one of the top 100 entrepreneurs under the age of 35 by the United Nations. Neil has also been awarded congressional recognition from the United States House of Representatives. That is a heavy-duty bio and heavy-duty intro, but I'll let Neil take over. Hi, Neil.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today, this morning?
I'm doing great.
You're doing great. Awesome. So, Neil, before we get started, I'm sure all people who are listening to this podcast, this interview, will be very, very curious to know how does all this story start? You're a really, really young man, right?
I'm getting older now. I am 29.
29. That is really, really young. Like, you're younger than me then. I'm going to turn 30 in a few weeks actually. But that's fantastic. At 29, so much success. What is it that makes Neil Patel?
So the thing that makes me is there's a few things. One, I really love what I'm doing. Not just so much where people are like, oh, find your passion and go do it. A lot of people claim something is something they really like. But I enjoy marketing so much and creating companies for marketers that I work my butt off, and it doesn't seem like work, right? I can work 70, 80-hour weeks consistently and not have to worry about it. It never stresses me out. I never feel like, oh, I should take a vacation or any of that. I really do enjoy working. I'm a workaholic. In addition to that, I continually learn from my mistakes and other people's mistakes. See, entrepreneurs think that, hey, to create that $1 billion company or $100 million company or even $1 million company, you have to be really smart. And sure, brains is part of it. Luck is a huge component. But what I've learned over the years is everyone, no matter how smart you are, you're going to fail many times and you're going to make mistakes. Just look at Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook worked out. His version of Snapchat, that was a copycat, did not work out, right? So there's other areas in which Facebook failed, but Facebook overall as a company has done great. Just because you're smart doesn't mean you're always going to succeed with everything you try or touch. But every time you do something, you will learn new things, you'll make mistakes, and if you learn from these mistakes and avoid making them over and over again, you'll actually increase your odds of succeeding as time goes on. And the best way to do this is not just to learn from your mistakes, but it's also to learn from the mistakes of others. Rockefeller, Carnegie, all these people who are entrepreneurs years ago in the 1800s, 1900s, they themselves use business principles and concepts that are still applicable in today's world. Sure, we have the internet, but the same strategies and concepts that they use are still applicable, right? So learn from their mistakes, learn what worked for them, what didn't work for them, why, and bring that into what you're doing today.
That's fantastic. So you're saying that you use the same principles that were also used in 1800s, 1900s. Would you like to share one of them? One of them that like stands out?
Sure. So one of them that stands out is, and it's a bit funny in which there's monopolies now. There wasn't monopolies back then. But how you deal with vendors. Mm-hmm. So for example, I remember when Carnegie and Rockefeller were dealing with each other and the train system and the oil, right? At this time, Rockefeller didn't have the oil pipeline. How he was negotiating with him and how Carnegie ended up squeezing him. So Carnegie ended up squeezing him and was just kept jacking up the prices. Eventually, Rockefeller realized that, hey, just because a vendor has you in a pinch doesn't mean that's the only solution. There must be ways. if he figured out that you can create pipelines and transport oil, right? At that time, it was used for kerosenes. You can end up, you can come up with something, another solution. And it's funny, in this day and age, when a vendor squeezes someone, a lot of entrepreneurs or companies feel like, oh, I have no other solution. Maybe I can find another vendor like them. But it's not the case. You can actually go out there and try to innovate, come up with something new. They did it back then. You can do it now.
That's fantastic, fantastic. So Neil, also circling back to how quickly you have found success, how early you started in your journey as an entrepreneur, what is it in life that generally made that switch, made you to go, I want to start a business or I want to be an entrepreneur? What happened?
Yeah, so I was a little kid. My mom and dad, my mom was an entrepreneur. She was a breadwinner, which is rare. In Indian culture, it's usually the dad is the breadwinner, but my mom was a breadwinner by far. And my dad understood a lot about business and concepts, but my mom, although she didn't have the knowledge, she was more scrappy, more aggressive. She just hustled. She did whatever it took to succeed. So I quickly learned that if I want to make good money, because I didn't grow up wealthy, that entrepreneurship was the only way. Because if you want a job, it's very hard to get a job that pays over six figures. Mm-hmm. So I felt that I want to be rich. I want to make, my goal at that time was to make $100,000 a year, and I felt the quickest way to get there would be to be entrepreneur. Because at the age of 16, there's no way I'm going to get a job and get paid $100,000 right away.
Mm-hmm. So you started at the age of 16, is it?
That's correct.
So why at 16? What happened at 16?
My sister was working for a guy. He was an Oracle financial consultant. Mm-hmm. And his job, like, you take a grocery store, Whole Foods, Ralph's, Vaughn's, whatever it may be, anywhere where you get food. And what he ended up doing was figuring out where to place items on the shelf, how quickly to order them to maximize profit and revenue. Mm-hmm. And he got paid well, like $250 an hour is a lot of cash. Mm-hmm. I wanted that same job, so I looked it up online, and they said you need Oracle certification, you need a college degree, you need X amount of experience. I'm like, I don't have any of this. I didn't even know what Oracle was. I just knew, it's this big company, and the dude who owns it has a big boat. That's all I knew about Oracle. But what I was looking for, when I was looking for a job, I realized that the site I was on, Monster.com at the time, was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm like, this site just takes job postings, people come there, search for jobs, companies pay to post a job. I'm like, this shit's easy. So I decided to replicate it, and I thought, if I make 1% of what they make, which shouldn't be hard, I'm going to be a millionaire. Little did I know it was actually very difficult to do that, but that was my first step into entrepreneurship.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. So what was the first website you started?
It was called Advice Monkey, and it was supposed to be a job board. It failed miserably. Yeah. I made a lot of mistakes. One of them was I didn't take payments online. I didn't know how to. PayPal and all these services weren't popular back then. 2, I thought when you pop up a website, traffic comes to you automatically. I didn't know that you could target your site. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I created a website. And I launched it. I'm like, okay, now people come. And no one came to it. I'm like, what's wrong? Why isn't everyone coming to my site?
Advice Monkey, yeah. Great. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And after that, how many companies have you started?
A lot. I don't even know the number. It's more than 10. Most failed miserably, and I learned quite a bit from them. In recent times, right, if you look at the last 3, 4, 5 years of my career, I haven't started too many companies. I started a shit ton early on, and that's when I made so many mistakes and failures. And as I got older, I quickly realized what's going to work, what's not going to work, and I rarely go into a venture these days unless something's going to work and make money.
Ah, fantastic. Fantastic. That's good. That's like compounding your failures to become successful, because you're compounding your experiences that are happening through the course of the year. So a lot of people who might be listening to this talk must understand that it's not that your first venture is going to be successful, and you don't have to kind of push yourself to, I mean, you should try to push yourself to make it successful, but at the same point in time, if it fails, it's okay, because it's going to compound. You shouldn't just give up too fast, right?
That's correct. And then another trick I ended up learning too is, you may not be able to do this, but I know in Indian cultures it's really easy. When possible, live with your mom and dad. Because when it's hard to succeed, so it's like, live with them, save all your money, live off of them if you can. Let them pay for the food, all gas, whatever you can. So that way, if you fail, you can keep at it. The only reason I'm successful today is because I kept at it. I moved out of my parents' house at the age of 23. I lived with my parents till 23 years old. My mom and dad still try to convince me to move back home with them. And it worked out so well because I kept failing, but I had no overhead. I didn't have to pay for office. I didn't have to pay for, uh, living. I didn't have family. I didn't have any of these responsibilities.
That's fantastic. Most of the entrepreneurs said, get out of your house. You're saying, no, stay in your house. That's a great way to save some money. That's fantastic. Now, coming on to your experience on Advice Monkey, the one thing that you realize, you show up, you create a website and you just expect traffic to show. Now, that doesn't happen. We all know that. But one thing that I know, and you spoke about a little bit about it at that event, which is why I'd love to revisit that topic because that talk was fantastic, is how to really get your website seen. We can specifically talk about how a lot of people feel that search engine optimization is there and search engines are gone for you and your website's not going to rank there. You have to find alternative ways. And I know you have a different opinion on that. We'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so funny enough, I got good at SEO because when my first business didn't do well, I hired a few SEO firms. I lost all my money, and then I ended up learning it myself. I got rankings. I still didn't know how to make money because I didn't accept payments online. Nonetheless, I learned how to get traffic to a website. With that experience, I got good at SEO, and I've been doing it since I was a little kid. The one thing I've noticed about SEO is things change over time, right? Everything adapts. Even planes, they're not the same as they were, 50 years ago. Everything changes. But the one thing about SEO is it still works. Just what worked 10 years ago doesn't work now, but it's still up and alive. It's doing extremely well. I think Google's still the number one or number two most popular on the site. Them and Facebook go back and forth. But if you look at that, you can crush it with with SEO. Due to the fact that Google has so much traffic, eventually, if your site ranks, you will get visitors to your site and you will make a ton of money from it.
Okay, fantastic. So how, like you said, it adapts all the time. So is there something that is like an underlying principle that you can stick with? Just because before we get into the steps, and that's what we are going to cover next, but before we get into the steps, what is it that, because if let's say I'm as an entrepreneur not really on the ball all the time trying to see what's changing in SEO, what is it that one thing, if I remember, that one principle, that one rule that'll always be good? Is there one?
There is one. So back in the day, Google used to say content is king.
Mm-hmm.
Still to this day, if you look at the algorithm, content is king. Not shitty content, good content. Even back then, they ranked good content over crap content, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as you can produce good content, you will do well in the long run.
Okay, fantastic. So underlying statement is keep your content really high quality and you should be winning the SEO game. Now, one thing that I requested before the call was if we could give action steps. That's one thing that we're doing in this interviews and podcast, that instead of just being a bunch of tips which sometimes people are not able to place in their business, we're trying to give them actual trainings, things that they can take back home, implement in their business, and see results straight off the bat. What I would love for you to is, if let's say I just started, let's say I posted this interview, let's take an example of this video. Let's say I post this video on YouTube. What are the next 5 to 7 to 10 steps you would say that I gotta do to make sure this content is visible to as many people, far and beyond?
Sure. So let's get into the steps, and let's start off the steps with writing the content, because I think that's where most people make their mistakes. The first step is write really good content. When I mean write really good content, I'm talking about writing content that people end up reading a year or 2 years from now and be like, wow, this is great. I can take this content and actually do something with it, implement it on my business, and make more money. Kind of like the podcast, action steps, right? How-to guides, lists, some of the best type of content that you can end up writing. Why? Because it's actionable. So that's the first. And when you're doing this, you need to create evergreen content. Evergreen content, which is step 2, is content that will be valuable for a long time. If I write right now, imagine we're going back a few years, Saddam Hussein, or not, Osama bin Laden got captured, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be hot, goes all over the web, you get a ton of traffic for it. But you know what? No one searches for Osama bin Laden anymore, right? He's already been captured, no longer around. But if I write an article on how to save money on airline tickets, how to meditate, how to do yoga better, how to do a certain position in yoga, 2-3 years from now, people are still going to search for that. it just shows you that evergreen content is really valuable. And that's where people make mistakes is one, they don't write the right type of copy, which is like how-to guides, actionable step. Two, they write too much short-term copy versus long-term. So you need to write long-term because you may not get a lot of traffic at the beginning, but in the long run, the search traffic adds up. More people will link to you over time, it'll spread, etc. So those are the first two steps in creating great content. The third step is, the thing about college is everyone thinks college is boring. No matter what, I haven't met one person, no matter what country you lived in, that says college is fun. And sure, you may enjoy certain parts of college, but the one aspect that's boring is creating essays. And I haven't met anyone that enjoys writing these essays. The thing with essays is it puts people to sleep, right? Especially when you have to read them. So with blogging, everyone's like, oh, I've been educated, I went to high school, I went to college, let me write a thesis, an intro, a conclusion, some body, bullet point, and they write like if they're writing an essay. Your teacher isn't reading this. Don't put anyone to sleep. Don't use these fancy words and high vocabulary that others can't understand. Write up your, a fifth grader's reading it. Create a conversation. Don't put people to sleep. Throw in some humor, some witty banter. Write with the words you and I, right? By using the words you and I throughout the blog post, it'll actually feel like you're having a conversation. Italicize certain words and phrases throughout the blog post. It'll make it feel more like a conversation. If you can do this, your blog posts are more likely to be read and they're more likely to be shared on the social web and spread throughout the web.
Mm-hmm. So that would be our third point, that you need to make content in a way that it can create a conversation, which means, of course, you're also actively seeking for people to share something back with you or share that content because you're trying to create a conversation, right?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
The next point would be going to promote the content.
Mm-hmm.
So with SEO, sure, you need to take care of the basics like on-page SEO, making sure your URLs are clean, and all that stuff is old and it's already out on the web, right?
Mm-hmm.
All you have to search for Beginner's Guide to SEO by a company called Moz, and they break down all the basics, which is all out there. Everyone's already doing all that stuff. It's not going to give you too much of a competitive edge, but you still need to do it. Mm-hmm. Assuming the basics are done, you need to now promote the content. Writing content's only half the battle in content marketing, right? And content marketing is a huge component of SEO these days.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to do is, one, create a list of 100 bloggers who write in your space. So if you ever link to them, mention to them, or you think their audience would be receptive to that post, you want to then email them and saying, hey, so-and-so, check out this post. So if I said, hey, Ajit, check out this post, I know you blog on Zentrepreneur. This may be relevant to your audience. If you like it, feel free to tweet it out. So I'm not asking you to blog about it. I would ask you to tweet it out. It's a much lower ask. For you to blog about it, you're like, it's good, but it's going to take me time. For you to tweet, and even if I give you the tweet, just copy and paste, and you're like, okay, let me tweet it out. Mm-hmm. That's how you get traction to the content. People see it, and a portion of those people will actually start linking back to you.
That's a fantastic strategy. It's like getting your foot in the door before asking for something big. You're just simply saying, hey, this is cool content. You anyways want to share that all the time on your Twitter. If you like it, just tweet it out. Here it is. It's such an easy thing to do. I mean, for anybody. I love that strategy. That's a great idea.
Then the next step is going out there and participating on community blogs, right? So that way when you email people like you or anyone, they're more likely to respond. Pete Cashmore for Mashable used this strategy, and this is how he made Mashable popular at first. He went to all blogs in the industry and would comment on all of their articles. Legitimate comments. He would read the post, comment, and participate. And it actually caused where he would start getting traffic back to the site and then gain readers. Mm-hmm. And it's a simple strategy. Too many people are lazy, so they don't want to do it, but it works extremely well.
All right. So content distribution, the segment can go through. First is go ahead, reach out to the bloggers and actually tell them to tweet or share your content. If it's good content, they'll tend to. How many people would actually go ahead and do that? Let's say if I send it out to 100 people, just so that people who are doing it know when not to feel that if it's not done, it's not working.
5 to 10% will tweet it out.
5 to
10%. It's targeted. If I email a food blogger and I'm blogging on marketing, I'm not going to get 5 to 10%. But if I'm emailing other marketing bloggers and I'm blogging on marketing, I should get at least a 5 to 10% tweet rate when I email it out.
That's fantastic, because that I think is also something that entrepreneurs tend to miss is it's not going to be 100%. It's not that every email that you're going to send is actually going to get responded to. Only 5 to 10% for a really small thing like tweet is something that the person who I was marketing and who I was listening to the podcast must keep in mind is going to be the response rate to this. And secondly, you said go ahead and comment on other people's blog, but you can't really post your links there, right? You just go ahead and you're building a connection, is it?
That's correct. But when you do a comment, the comment box asks for a name, email address, and URL. So you are linking back to your site, and you will get clicks. You can't put your URL in the comment box, but you can put your URL in the comment form, because it'll ask you name, email, and there'll be a URL field, and you can put your URL of your website.
Awesome, that's fantastic. So that again, you would say go ahead and make it a ritual every day? Is that what you're saying? That every day you must go do it for like 20 minutes?
Yeah, 20 minutes, do it early in the morning, and then go from there. Mentioning people within your blog post. So there's a good chance when you write a blog post that there's other resources that you can link to, whether it's the competitor, other people out there, people in the industry. You can probably link to related posts that'll benefit your readers. And when you do this, let those people know that you mentioned them within your blog, because when you do that and you email them and you ask them, feel free to share it on Twitter or Facebook, link to it, you usually will get a 20 to 30+% acceptance rate of them sharing it, tweeting it, potentially linking to their website, which is huge.
Which is huge also because, I mean, who doesn't want to be mentioned? I can clearly see that working. I mean, who doesn't want to be quoted at another blog or article or anybody who's publishing online? So I can see that working for sure. That's a great strategy. That's step 6. That's a good one.
Step 7 is actually starting to communicate with other writers in your space and networking with them. So what you want to do is you want to go to Forbes, Huffington Post, wherever people are guest posting in your industry, and get to know the authors. So, for example, there's this guy named Jason. He guest posts on Forbes. So I got to know him. I gave him feedback on his posts. I tweeted some out. And what ended up happening, I built a relationship with him. By doing that, I'm starting to build a bond. And then when I ask him for a favor, the favor would be, can you please introduce me to another editor at Forbes, Huffington Post, whatever it may be, wherever he's guest posting. There's a high chance that he's going to actually do the introduction, usually like 50% or something high like that. And that's really useful because when you get into guest posting, which will be the next step, these sites can drive a lot of traffic. And if you want to be on Forbes or Huffington Post, they don't know who you are. They don't even know who I am, right? There's nothing wrong with it. They're just stuck in their world. So the best way to get on there is not to go through their submission form. It's to get an intro from another writer that writes there frequently.
Fantastic. So you connect with other writers, and usually you would do that by just feedbacking, or are there events that you usually connect these people with at, or it's just feedback online?
Feedback online. I don't do it through events. I do it all through online. I just email them because their bio's there. I'll tweet out some of their articles. I'll direct message them on Twitter, follow them, whatever it may be, right? Do @ replies. All this stuff helps. So once you get accepted on Forbes or whatever, maybe, you can write content and you write a few blog posts. Make sure it's not promotional. Just write really great blog posts. They'll give you a bio. You can link back to your site in your bio. You don't want to use rich anchor text that's manipulating search engines. But you just want to link back. It'll drive traffic. What's really interesting is once you start posting regularly, you can throw in links to your own site's work when it only benefits the reader, and then you'll notice that your traffic will really spike because these sites get tens of millions of visitors a month. These big ones, right, like Forbes or Huffington Post, whatever they may be.
That's fantastic. So guest posting is not dead. Guest posting for really good websites is still working. Or would you recommend or suggest it's okay even if the website's not big, you should still go ahead and do it?
That's correct. You should still go ahead and do it.
Should go ahead and do it because you're creating a network, you're creating a presence as far and beyond, even if it's a few hundred clicks, because it's valuable. It comes back and adds to your SEO. Would you say that?
That's correct. Well, it adds SEO, but the main thing is it adds to traffic. Traffic leads to social shares, people discovering you, linking back, etc., which then does help with SEO.
So guest blogging being an active part of the strategy. What would be the next step?
The next step is to start collecting emails. So once people are visiting your site, you have more people. Try pop-ups, pop-up domination as a plugin, balance exchange, whatever you want to use. Collect emails. That way, when you release new content, you can blast out to your lists, and that'll actually generate you quite a bit of consistent traffic and get people coming back to your site, which will create more social shares because email list generally generates more social shares than any other form of traffic. It'll generate more comments. More comments is more text. You'll be found in search engines for more long-tail keywords, which will help your overall traffic.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
Emails, make sure you give away something free. A lot of people are like, oh, free newsletter, sign up, join. No one wants to just join. But if you say, hey, I'm going to give you this free guide, ebook, your opt-in rates will go through the roof.
That's true. That's true. We have never actually done, at least in our business, whenever we have done like a free newsletter on the sidebar of the blog, the conversion rate is like 1%, 2%, and you put in a really good, get these 7 lessons to do X, Y, Z, it goes to like 25-30%. It's crazy how specificity, especially if you know your audience and you know what kind of people are showing up on the website, your conversion rates are always through the roof. That is so true.
So the last step is actually creating groups, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. I like doing LinkedIn myself. Even though it's a B2B network, there's people on there who like everything. Humans are humans, right? So I'll create groups on marketing leaders, or you can create groups about yoga, whatever it may be. And you add people to the group, right? You just join other groups, you invite other members. What happens is once your group is like 5,000 members, when you then submit a post to the group, you won't get too much traffic, but when you have a good post, you can message out the whole group because you're the group owner. And what you'll notice is you can quickly generate 5,000 to 10,000 visitors per blast to the group.
Yeah. So I never thought LinkedIn was that powerful.
Yeah, it's really effective. It's my #1 social media channel. I actually get more traffic from LinkedIn than any other social media channel out there.
So you're saying LinkedIn right now trumps Facebook? Because I would assume Facebook is the greatest channel for traffic right now.
It trumps Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and it trumps them all even if you combine them all.
Wow. That's fantastic. Well, I would love to try LinkedIn then. I mean, I've always tried Facebook and we get a ton of traffic from there, but we just never have really gone ahead and then did LinkedIn advertising. Totally should do that. Not even advertising, like LinkedIn content distribution channel, if I may say that.
Yeah, it's so effective. I spend around $5,000 a month to build up my LinkedIn channel.
Oh, wow.
Ads and stuff like that. That's how effective it is.
So you use advertising to get people into your group or getting to come to your website?
Did first, but I now use advertising to spur the growth even more because the traffic's so valuable and it's high converting.
Awesome. And they go straight to your website, is it? Fantastic.
No, the ads they join the group. I don't care if someone goes to my website. I try to get everyone to join the group, and then from there I'll blast out to people to get them to come to my website.
Fantastic. So Neil, you've got really good steps, but here is one thing. When you have so many steps as an entrepreneur, you go, holy shit, this is too much. And it sounds like it's a lot of work because, of course, there's a lot of content. You're talking about creating a lot of content, and not everybody's forte is to create that much content. Would you say there are some alternate strategies? I'm saying not alternate to how to create more content marketing, but actually to be able to implement what you're saying. Is there a easier way that you would be able to suggest?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you guys a few options. The first one is if you're strapped for money, you can't hire people to help you out, right? The thing I would recommend is if you're strapped for time and money, just do steps 1 through 4, right? Which goes all the way from writing great content like how-to guides, lists, to creating evergreen content that will last for 3-4 years, to creating a conversation using you and I and doing the basics of SEO. And the 4th step would be emailing 100 people out to share it on Twitter. I would stop there if you're strapped for time and money. If you have money, you can go to ProBlogger job board, and you can actually find people to help you out with the content creation, and you can also assign them to promote it, and you can outline the steps that you want them to take. And what you'll quickly find is that they'll do it, and they'll do it for like $10-15 an hour. 20 to 30 overpaying, yeah.
Only $10-15 an hour?
Yep, and then if you want to pay more for higher quality, you can get it done for like $20 an hour.
And it's really good quality, you would say this can be found in any niche, like the writers there.
That's correct.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's not that expensive considering like sometimes you pay up to $3, $4, $500 an article. At least that's what you've done. $20 an hour looks like that you could get a lot of articles for $500.
Yeah, you can, and typically you can even do a per article rate. You can find good writers for $50 an article.
That's fantastic. $50 an article sounds very reasonable, especially, and this could go for any expert coach, whoever's listening. I mean, you could just maybe give an outline of your content or the stuff that you want to share and tell them to build on it, right?
You don't have to do that. Tell them to do research. Once the research is done, they come back to you. You approve the outline, and then they start writing.
Oh, wow. So they will even do the research for you. That's fantastic. That's really good. That's really good. So that's awesome. Is there any follow-up thing that you would like to share with the audience in the sense of some message that they should remember while they're doing all of this?
Give it at least 6 months. So do it consistently at least once a week where you need to put out content. And do it for at least 6 months because it takes time. People expect to see great results with SEO right away. Search engines are smart. They like older sites, and it takes a while before they start ranking you and giving you love.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying start today, but keep at it for about 6 months from now. These are the, I think we did like 12 steps, 11 or 12 steps. I am going to put out, like after I think I'll have to re-listen to make sure that the order is correct and share that as a PDF with the interview. But there are about 10 to 12 steps if you have the money and the time to be able to do that. If not, then just follow the first 4, and that should be good.
Yep. And after 6 months, you should still continue doing it. But what I'm saying is give it 6 months before you really start evaluating yourself based off the results of the traffic. Mm-hmm. So don't be discouraged because the first few months are very hard and slow.
If I may ask, what is the way that you schedule your 12 steps or your 10 steps? Is it that you go, okay, Monday I'll get this part done, or Tuesday I will get this part, or is it like a part of day, or how does it happen? How do you make sure that this content is always going on?
I just continually crank, and I don't really look at it as steps. It's like ingrained in my head, like routine. Mm-hmm. Like wait, you brush, you shower, you eat breakfast. It just becomes a standard of life. I've been doing it for so long, like probably 7-8 years, maybe more, where it's just part of it now.
So you make it a part of your routine to be able to go in and create that content and make that distribution happen. So that is one more great tip for everybody that is listening, that you don't make it a part of your routine, and you will be able to follow through. You will be able to really generate all of this in 6 months or more or less. Who knows? Like, you'll start getting some traction as soon as you start. I mean, some of the tips that you gave, I'm sure will get you traction straight off the bat, like commenting on other people's content or just simply asking people to tweet it out. I can see that getting traction really, really fast. Yep. Or the LinkedIn groups, which was like a breakthrough for me. I was like, LinkedIn, wow, I never looked at it that way. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Neil. Do you want to leave a quick message to all the entrepreneurs listening to Zentrepreneur right now?
Yeah, make sure you guys go to Zentrepreneur and Awesomeness Fest. It's a great event. I really enjoyed it, and not only did I learn a lot, but it was some of the funnest period of my life, especially going to a networking event that's educational yet fun, which is rare.
Thank you so much, Neil. It was fun talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming on this call.
Thanks for having me.